This week in PlayStation, we're talking about our 4th annual PS I Love You XOXO PlayStation Awards. The biggest miss of the year, the biggest moment, all the highs and lows of 2023. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Welcome to the show, everybody. That's Blessing. That's Janet. I'm Greg. And you can get the show on patreon.com/KindaFunny. There you can watch us record it live, just like Arturo Tron Robo Bartender is, who's watching for the first time. Welcome to a live show, new Trog. Of course, on patreon.com/KindaFunny, you could also get it ad-free and get dozens of monthly bonus episodes of exclusive content. If you have no bucks to toss our way, no big deal. Support us on the Epic Game Store, Fortnite, Rocket League, or Fall Guys with the creator code KindaFunny. You can get PS I Love You XOXO for free with ads and without the exclusive content on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and podcast services around the globe each and every week. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Jackson Hampton, Delaney Twining. Today we're brought to you by BetterHelp. But let's start with a PSN message from Yo! Hello, Blessing. Hello, Janet.
Hello. Hi, Greg.
You both look fantastic. Congratulations on making it to the 4th annual awards.
You look fantastic.
I was like, I remember doing them last year, and I was like, and what? We done one before then? I was like, oh no, this is a 4th one. God, good Lord. This is becoming a thing.
I mean, it's a big thing. Maybe one day it'll become the next Heelys.
No.
No?
Don't think it will be. I don't think that's in the cards. I don't think that's in the cards for a thrown together award show.
We invite the devs out. We're like, hey, come up, get your acceptance speeches, and then we cut them off. Hey, wrap it up.
Please wrap it up. Please wrap it up.
What a power move,
That's what you do. You got to keep these devs in their place, all right? They've had it too easy in 2023. It's about time somebody really told them. All right, this is where you are in the feeding. No, the totem. This is where you are in the ladder.
The That's kingdom. I get what you're talking about.
Yeah. I digress. Time for a PSN message from you. Remember, you can write in for free to be part of the show at, of course, kindafunny.com/PSILY. Today's question comes from Kelsey Jacobs. Kelsey writes in and says, with the glowing reviews out for Asgard's Wrath 2, a MetaQuest 3 game, of course, I can't help but think the worst Sony studio acquisition is the one they never made. Sanzaru Games. I played the Sly Cooper games for the first time in 2021, and I fell in love. While not quite up to the same bar as the original trilogy, Sly 4 by Sanzaru was the next best thing after Sucker Punch moved on to Infamous and then Ghost of Tsushima. Up until the Bungie acquisition, Sony's MO was establishing a solid relationship with the studio before buying them. And that's exactly what they had with Sanzaru and Sly. Remastering the Spyro trilogy, aka one of the original mascot icons of PlayStation, certainly couldn't have hurt either. Asgard's Wrath 2 on PlayStation VR 2 could have been the killer app Sony is missing with PSVR 2, as it's almost certainly going to be for the MetaQuest. Now all it is for PlayStation is just a reminder of what could have been. I adore this question. Of course, we did two sponsored streams for MetaQuest 3 and for Asgard's Wrath 2. And in both of them, and in the unboxing, I made sure to continuously call out, even though I'm sure Meta wanted me to stop, the fact that this is Sanzaru, a studio we know so well from the Sly trilogy, from Sly 4, from coming on Podcast Beyond. And, my story with them goes that when I went to demo the Quest 1 the first time, they were over on another station showing Asgard's Wrath 1. And it was Matt Kramer, who I know so well from this. They also did the Marvel Heroes VR game. I forget what its official title was. Back on another Oculus or whatever it was. And I remember talking to Matt, and he was so excited to show it to me. And I was just like, oh, well, I don't have a PC in this VR thing, so I'm not actually going to be able to ever play it. So I was excited for a MetaQuest 3 to have the ability to play this, because I do have MetaQuest 3, and I do love my MetaQuest 3, let alone the fact that it then got a 10 out of 10 from IGN. And so then for us, talking about what could have been, Blessing, do you think Sony is looking out the window right now going, Sanzaru?
Do I think Sony is doing that? No, but I think maybe they should be, right? Like, I don't know if and we talk about PSVR 2 all the time of like, where's Sony with it? Are we gonna even see
We'll see where it comes up in our
are we gonna even get another first party PlayStation VR game, right? Like, what does that slate even look like if it exists? And I think Sanzaru could have been the ones to help helm that, right? And like it's the tough thing of what VR is and how hard VR is to sell, because I could see a alternate timeline where PlayStation buys Sanzaru and it is, hey, Team Asobi, Sanzaru, London studio, like they create sort of like the Avengers of VR games in a sense.
Yeah.
I think that could have been dope, right? Because we talk about these games that come through in VR that supersede or I guess exceed beyond what the expectations are that people have in VR, right? Like I would say before Asgard's Wrath 2 and seeing what the Metacritic and what the reviews look like for that, which are incredible, right? I gave it a 10 out of 10, and on Metacritic it has above a 90, like 93 last time I checked.
I'll check for you.
But before that, if you would ask me like, oh, what's a virtual reality masterpiece, I would have been like, oh, Astrobot Rescue Mission.
Hell yeah.
The first one, right? And I might throw Beat Saber in there as well. But
can I ask, would you toss Alex in there? Or are you not familiar enough?
I'm not playing Alex. Okay. And so,
93 right now on Metacritic for Asgard's Wrath.
Yeah, Alex is probably in the conversation, right? But like, I think, regarding where PlayStation could have positioned themselves in that VR race, in that VR conversation, like I think Sanzaru is probably like a missed opportunity there. I don't know if there's still time. Like, I don't know if there's still an opportunity to like acquire Sanzaru. If Sanzaru is already acquired by.
That's a great question.
Somebody.
I'm not
like,
sure
I know
if they
Meta
actually are owned by Meta.
I know Asgard's Wrath 2 is a Meta Quest 3 exclusive.
Yeah, they are. They are owned by Oculus Studios now, according to Wikipedia.
So there you go. It's already too late.
Too late. Yeah, they got away. Janet, do you think they're the one that got away?
No, I don't think so. I'm kind of exactly with Bless, where it's like, in a way, I think any plan can work, even, whether it's good or bad, as long as you kind of like stick to it and see it through. And I feel like PlayStation's in this really weird spot where they're like, we're going to be different, but not too much now. It's like, so I don't know. There's like, I'm not really sure what the attitudes are there. I don't think they're really conducive to expanding that lane, which is weird because they have PSVR 2. So clearly like there's interest in PSVR 2 in virtual reality, but I see remnants of that, but I don't actually feel it in, I think, the library, the desires from within the studios, the ways they move with acquisitions, versus I think if we look at acquisitions as strategy, we've clearly seen the way PlayStation is like, okay, well, eventually we like port our stuff to PC. Now at this point, it's kind of in our wheelhouse. So we see other ways their acquisitions support their ethos. I don't think we've really seen, as far as like the VR thing, evidence of, oh yeah, you can tell they're doing this as like a strategic VR move, which is weird because they have the hardware. So I'm not really sure if they're PSVR 2 kind of feels like, you ever have, well, at least like this is very relatable for me, where like you have a goal, right? You're like, no, I want to do that. And it's like, how are you working towards that? And you're like, putting out good thoughts. Like, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel Sony is with PSVR, or PlayStation rather, is with PSVR 2 at the moment.
And I know we take it on.
It'd be nice, but I'm not going to put effort.
When we talk about PlayStation VR 2, and we always are like, it's dead on arrival and Sony doesn't support it, blah, blah, blah. There's the audience and the segment of the VR audience that comes back to us. We're like, well, look at these games that they have been a part of and have made come out and blah, blah. What I always step back to, and especially for this question, is again, those are partnerships. They're not first party. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you're not seeing Bend, Insomniac, Naughty Dog churn out or have PlayStation VR 2 titles ready to go at launch to prove that this is a thing, nor do we have them on the roadmap of like, hey, we're making this a thing. I think it speaks back to this question that's a fascinating one. I do love it's topical, Kelsey. That no, I don't think Sanzaru is the one that got away, because I think they wouldn't have fit for, like, if PlayStation had acquired them after the Sly collection, after Sly 4, they would have never gone and made VR games. I don't think that's what it was, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there was actually an interest for it, and that got, there are always all these things, right? Because you're looking at this, right, and it's 2016 VR Sports Challenge, Marvel Powers United VR in 2018, then Asgard's Wrath in 2019, they're acquired in 2020, Asgard's Wrath 2 now in 2023. It's that idea that I don't think Sony would have looked at them. They would have said that, and they would have been like, all right, off to the races with you, because they just haven't done that with the other first parties. I would assume they would have made them make Sly, the next Sly, which of course hasn't happened, even though Sly 4 ends on a cliffhanger of like where Sly ends up. So it's like, clearly that game didn't sell well enough, didn't meet whatever expectations Sony had for it to be a relationship that they wanted to keep going with. And I think if you don't have the idea with the studio you're acquiring of what their next thing needs to go be, it just doesn't work. Similar to how you look at the closure of Pixel Opus, right? Where it was Concrete Genie got a lot of critical acclaim, right? But it just, where does this studio fit in the mix? And I think if they would have forced them to keep being the platformer remake whatever you want to call them studio. I just don't think that's what PlayStation's identity is.
Yeah. I think again, when I look into the alternate timeline, there's a lot of things that have to line up for this to be such a for that to be such a slam dunk of having Sanzaru be working on VR games for PlayStation. And part of it is what you mentioned of would they even get to that point if they were acquired by PlayStation, or would they be working on their own things for PS5 or their own remasters or remakes or whatever it is. I think the other thing is like, that would also require PlayStation to look at their studios and go, all right, we're going to have an organized attack here, right? Like PSVR 2 is coming out, and, Insomniac, Team Asobi, you and you are going to all work on these PSVR games. I think for Sony, the way I almost think about it in terms of like, an analogy is right now I'm like trying to plan a New Year's Eve party, and like I'm looking through the guest list and I'm like, okay, cool, this looks like it might be a good party, hopefully people show up. And I think PSVR 2 was a party that PlayStation planned, and they were like, all right, hopefully some first parties show up, and everybody was like, nah, man, that part
who's gonna be there,
yeah, who's gonna be there? Oh, that seems like too far of a drive for us to get there, right? Or like, oh man, I got another party I'm going to, and that party is on the PS5 proper, right? Like I think it's one of those things where PlayStation has this platform, they created this hardware and went, let's put this out, and then just nobody like PlayStation, I don't think they're the type to like force any of their studios to do things. And so if it ends up that none of their studios want to make a PSVR 2 game, then it's like, oh, all right. But then the question becomes, does PlayStation force some of these studios to make VR games, right? Like, would that have been the route where it is Team Asobi, Sanzaru, let's say Guerrilla with Horizon?
Sure.
Yeah, let's make a VR game. Let's create this slate that's going to sell people. But then you also have to have trust that that's going to sell people to actually get VR, and which is another step. And so it's a complicated thing. But yeah, I think I agree with you guys in terms of, I don't think one studio was the chess piece that would have, clutched the PSVR 2 its success. But it would have been a fascinating thing to see. This would have been a fascinating thing to like talk about and see what the results would have been.
Yeah, for a launch lineup we all felt underwhelmed by, right? It would have been interesting if it could have had this Asgard's Wrath 2, or even if it was at the end of the first year, or you know what I mean, calendar year of it being out, there was a chance for it to be there, but we will see. And again, it's interesting too of like what we've talked so much about with VR is the concept of, well, eventually Alex has to come to PlayStation VR 2, right? Because this is such a small pool of consumers, you need everything on everything. And I do wonder with this, if this is one that eventually Oculus would look at and be like, well, we should maybe publish this, or Meta would look at it and be like, maybe we do publish on PlayStation VR 2. But again, install units and what they actually can get out of it and da-da-da. And like, they're giving it away when you buy MetaQuest 3. Yeah. So that's like, I was talking about this on the stream. I'm just like, when was the last time a platform literally had that pack in? Like, you think about the old days of like Super Mario World and everything. Like,
I mean, Astro's Playroom, right, would be the analog.
And but like, pack-in that is the killer app. And I'm not talking shit, but I mean, I think that would be like PS5 coming with Miles Morales, where it's like, hey, this is like the most impressive game. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not trying to talk shit. You know how much I love Astro. I love Astro.
I'm putting Astro above Miles Morales. I'm sorry.
You would. I know, you freaking weirdo.
I can pack in God of War Ragnarok with the PS5. All right, let's get crazy.
Yeah, sure, okay. I was talking about launch lineups. It doesn't matter. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to topic of the show. It's that time of year again, where the year ends. And so we're going to talk about our PS I Love You XOXO awards for 2023. If you've never joined us before, the show works like this. We'll run through, I believe, 5 categories where I, of course, have each of our answers down. I have now pie charts. That's right. For the first time ever, I looked into how to do pie charts, which turns out you just select all the answers and hit chart, and then it makes this. Oh. And then Spider-Man appears like 19 times because none of you could agree on how to submit your answer for Spider-Man. But it doesn't matter.
Let me tell you about Kind of Feudy. Like how people cannot agree how to say certain things.
Anyways, 5 categories that we go through each and every year to talk about, to have a nice little conversation. Then we'll do a little sponsor break. Then we'll come back and we'll get into the categories you have submitted, of course, for all future episodes, including award shows. You can be part of the show by going to kindafunny.com/PSILY to answer our questions and ask your own. Just have a great time. So let's begin as we always do. I assume I didn't go back to look at the other ones. With the most underrated PlayStation game of 2023. Blessing, when you read this question, what jumped to mind?
Immediately, Tren jumped to mind. It's
nice.
It's one that I've brought up here and there throughout the year, but it's one that, came through way under the radar. and I don't think anybody's to blame really for that one, right? Like it's just the circumstance of what
We've
this game
wrapped
is.
up everything on Dreams, but there's one thing coming.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, hey, Dreams is done, but also here's it on PS Plus, and then also here's a game that we're dropping. So Media Molecule dropped a game this year. That game is Trend. They dropped the game within Dreams, and this game fucking rocks. And I didn't hear many people talk about it, unfortunately, but it's one that I played quite a bit of, and I thought was really cool, and I really enjoyed. It's basically a toy train puzzle game where you're playing as this toy train in a bunch of different tracks, right? And you are basically trying to figure out what's the quickest way to get to the end of the track by taking different paths, by also like collecting the different carts that you attach to your track to get to the end. And it's one of those ones where you're trying to get like the 3 stars on the course.
Yep.
It's one of those types of experiences, and I love it for the style of it. You know, again, it's one of those made in Dreams games, but it pushes the platform of Dreams where I think visually it's pretty stunning, and it's also just a fun one to like look at. Of like, this feels like I'm playing in a toy box. Like it legitimately has like the physics and the feel of playing with an actual toy train. So I thought that was cool. I think the puzzles that they put together and like the concept of what you have to do with the puzzles is really fun, because it will be, oh man, okay, on this track I need to get to where the elevator is, and then like raise the elevator, but also grab each of the carts on each level of the elevator and then get to the end of it before or by a certain point so I can get the 3-star thing. I really enjoyed what the ways in which that made me think, and the ways in which that made me have to problem solve.
It was way deeper than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Right. Where it was, I did the intro and a little bit further, and that's when I was like, all right, this is a puzzle poppy game. It's not a Greg game of chasing the high score and doing this whole thing, but flipping the switches in a fraction of a second, trying to shave seconds off your time, doing these certain tasks inside to get seconds removed from your clock at the end.
Yeah.
And I want to bring in a question from the live chat. Cameron Kennedy says, for people who played it, is it good, or is it Dreams good?
I think
I fucking love that question.
How dare you ask this, something
What
so
are you implying,
accurate.
Cameron Kennedy?
Well, I don't know. Like, I feel you, but at the same time, like, it's like I get it, but then I get like frustrated by it too, because I do think that so much of the conversation around Dreams, where it has such a distinct look and feel, that people are kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Like it's valid, but also it is like the nail in the coffin of a thing that's already dead. But I mean, because I don't know, frankly, I played really good things in Dreams. I feel like
there are a lot of really good things in Dreams. We've done the impies before where we voted, and some of those things always blow my mind, right? But I do think there is that thing where there are some of them that are like, oh my God, what an amazing experience. And there are ones like, oh yeah, this is good for Dreams. This has the Dreams vibe to it.
And like, you know, I made a Dreams episode of the Blessing Show where I went through and highlighted some of the cool things in Dreams. And a lot of those are like, oh yeah, this is a cool thing for a thing that was created in another thing that had like a developed, like, yeah, I think there's to Cameron Kennedy's question, right? Like, I think that's a valid question. I also think that one, Trend is good, but then also like there are a handful of things that I've experienced in Dreams where I'm like, whoa, like y'all really made this. I forget if you guys were on the same Impies judge panel for this one, but there was a game called Lock. I talked about it.
Oh, I wasn't, but you were.
I definitely was. And I talked about it in that Blessing Show about this game Lock, and Lock is like, oh man, it's like such a good first-person puzzle game that reminds me a lot of something like The Witness. That I wish, like, man, the thing that I wish Dreams could implement would be an export button. That is, hey, export this outside of Dreams.
And see, that's my thing with Trend, and to Cameron Kennedy's question, but I was going to say it beforehand, is that I do think, and this is something we talked about originally when Dreams launched, and we're the possibilities and like people saying like different ideas they had for it, and I'm talking about like Media Molecule, like their hopes and dreams for it. Trend is good enough that I think it should be exportable, have its own tile, you click on it, and whatever backend stuff just gets you straight to it, rather than booting Dreams, drop down, do you want to create, do you want to go to the Dreamscape, do you want to do the thing, do that, search and find, like, Trend is a really good game.
And I'm not going to sit here and say, like, Trend is one of the best games of the year, one of the best things ever created, but, like...
You'd say it's the most underrated game of the year.
I do, I mean, yeah, we'll say it's underrated, right? Because underrated is, what, reception versus, like... I'm trying to create my own definition. Yeah, like hype, you know, versus
how many people played it?
Yeah, and I think because it was, you know, released in Dreams, and it kind of had this it felt like a low-key release, especially when we were talking about a PlayStation first-party thing. People didn't treat that as like a new PlayStation first-party game came out today. Like nobody thought that, right? But if you're tuned in, you're like, oh, Media Molecule released a thing, like a big update in Dreams. Oh, let me play this, and you're like, oh, this is really good. If this came out as a $15 I was gonna say Steam, but I guess technically PlayStation puts things on Steam, right? So if this came out as a $15 Steam and PSN release and people played it, I think people would have been like, oh man, 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. Like, I think it would have been like oh man, this is pretty good, right? And we enjoy it and we have fun with it. But I don't think Trend even got that luxury, at least enough of it. And so yeah, that's why it's my pick for most underrated.
That's a great answer. I like that one a lot. You're welcome. Janet, what'd you pick?
Yeah, I hot swapped mine like 2 seconds ago because I think to Blessing's point, it has to be underrated. Like people don't like fuck with it to some degree. And the pick I was gonna I'll get to later anyway. It's like one of my favorite experiences on PlayStation this year. But instead, I'm gonna go Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals because that baby's sitting at a 73, and I think that is underrated. I think it's very much in that at least high 70s, low 80s conversation. Again, if you want to bring it down to numbers, but in general, I think Oxenfree is kind of an underrated series within Night School. Like, I think these are some of the most affecting and emotional stories that I experience in games. I really love their narrative design of it is a walk and talk, but it is a walk and talk that feels very genuine to real conversations you have. Frankly, this is going to sound like hyperbole, but I think the conversation structure is actually really similar to what Sony Santa Monica does in God of War. The only difference is you're not ripping people's heads off in between. So there is obviously more conversation than there is in those games. But that idea of these feel like actual people who meet and talk and hang out. For those who don't know, Oxenfree 2, it is the follow-up to Oxenfree 1. So it is, returning to the islands, the mystery, the paranormal, the idea of fussing with radio signals to interact with paranormal activity, essentially. And through that, you're also, conversing with different characters and the story unfolds, right? I don't want to give spoilers. And the thing that's really cool about Oxenfree 2 is, and I think it gets a lot of weight of like, oh, but it didn't hit like as fresh as Oxenfree 1 because it's a lot of the same, I think, mechanical structures. Like, it's like, okay, it's the same thing, but sort of different. But I think the differences are really intriguing in both the gameplay with how the radio functions and the other kind of almost side quest content that you can engage in. But I also really love that Oxenfree 2 is a game about being an adult, but like a younger adult, like not super young, because I don't know how old the characters are, but I kind of get that like 20s, early 30s vibe.
I was going to say, mid 20s to early 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus, Oxenfree was like a teenager story. And I think it was a very authentic teenage story and it was a very relatable teenage story, but this was like in a younger adult story. And I think that also had some teen stuff thrown in there, but I think that's also a really cool examination of what does that kind of look like on the adult scale without being heavy-handed. Because I think a lot of times it's like, okay, well, let me unpack all of my traumas and my anxieties and whatever, and that's fair and fine. But I like the subtlety with which Oxenfree 2 does it, where you kind of don't even fully clock it until you're in the middle of it, and you're like, oh my god, this is like hardcore therapy sessions within this game. So yeah, I love that title. I think all y'all are fucking tripping, thinking that it's like kind of mid. I think it's fantastic, but that's my underrated game.
Yeah, Janet, you and I reviewed it together and we both really, really dug it. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, right? In the way that, especially as the most underrated PlayStation game of the year being the award we're talking about right now, it was that this is kind of the classic that we talk about for everything. When it's like God of War 2018, oh man, Ragnarok. Well, it's going to be more God of War. How do they overcome that? Marvel Spider-Man 2. Well, it's going to be more of a great game. Everybody like, how do you overcome that? I think Oxenfree fits this definition and is a great pick for underrated because that was the narrative of this. Oxenfree, number one, was a game people loved, adored, played multiple times, got the secret ending, really connected with, and had so much emotional connection to, right? And it was an indie that came out of nowhere. That when you announced 2, I really do think the review synopsis was not as good as the first, but all right. And that was like where so many people were like, okay, cool, I don't need to play it. And in a year full of bangers, in a year full of 10 out of 10s and Game of the Years every month, this one I don't need to worry about. Whereas I had such a great time connecting with it. This one worked for me when Oxenfree 1 didn't. And I think it is because being a meandering, what's going on in my life, 25 to 30-year-old, was a closer connection to my own life than being man, I've gone through a ton of fucking trauma in high school and now I need to figure out what's going on here. And I liked, as I talked about in the review with you, like I liked that they got going quicker. since we already knew what was going to happen, to a degree of what the mechanics are and what's going on in the island, you got to that immediately rather than there being a bunch of cloak and dagger stuff like there was in the first game to get you there. And then even then, they managed to flip it by the end, which I adored. My pick for most underrated PlayStation game of 2023 is Before Your Eyes on PlayStation VR 2. It's an interesting one, again, because we're talking about, well, what do you define as most underrated and da-da-da-da-da. Before Your Eyes on PlayStation VR 2 doesn't even have its own set on Metacritic. You go there and you search and you just find PC and more, and it has a 77, which I think is an underrated score, but it falls into this category for multiple reasons. As I talked about when I reviewed it here, it was the idea, and I gave Janet carte blanche that if she ever plays a game that I have to play, she can tell me, you have to play this, and I will stop doing what I was doing. Because when this came out last year, right, on mobile devices and PC and stuff, I had heard it was good, and I had heard it was a Greg game, Janet loved it, I know, but nobody was like, no, Greg, this is going to be extremely your shit. Stop what you're doing.
Let's be honest. You ignored people. Like, this is,
no, I just don't trust people. I don't. Janet,
you told me
it's
it was
your
good.
fault, Janet.
I heard it was
it's
good.
Your fault.
I felt like it was
good. You loved it, but you
good.
never said, Greg, stop what you're doing and go play the goddamn game.
You're like, but did anyone punch me in the face
That's
to play
what I
it?
need.
No, I can't say they did.
Janet,
you know what
do
I mean?
you
Like, at a certain point.
My social media is filled with people telling me to play games I've already fucking reviewed. I don't know, Janet. All right, I don't know.
I get it to a degree, right? But I think to some degree you have to admit that that's like, I can't pop up here next year and be like, Sea of Stars. People had been mentioning it. You know what I mean?
But
like, you gotta be like,
Barrett has
I'll
bad taste. We all know that.
That's true.
Oh, he's here.
So you fumbled, and now you're realizing.
I fumbled.
Good luck finding a new director next year.
Oh God, no!
If you'd like to work here, right here, KindaFunny.com. If you could push fucking buttons.
There's a lot of buttons back there. I've been back there.
It's
like 19 monitors.
Good luck trying to repair the studio next year, Greg.
We can't use the gym because there's a giant leak. The studio's already fucked.
There's a ladder right there. It's blocking the gym.
Anyways, back to it. So I ignored that and then heard it was coming to VR and then was excited for it. But even that, putting on VR 2, which again is a game, for me is a platform that doesn't have many standouts this year. Everything I played was usually take it off after an hour, put it down, and walk away. This is the one that I played through and bawled my eyes out inside of the VR world to take it off and be at my desk and be left with that sadness. Obviously, as you already know, I hope the game starts with you already dead. You're being ushered, to be judged or whatever, your soul, and then going through and controlling with just blinking your eyes to go through and relive your memories to see how your character got here. Like, it was just stunning and amazing. And I think the reason I put it here for underrated, not just the Metacritic, not just the fact that it's just, I think people don't think of it as a PlayStation VR 2 game, so I don't think people played it. Yeah. I think that since there's not really any hype outside of a select few for PlayStation VR 2, you couldn't move the needle on it. And I think that even the fact that it was popular last year on different platforms, including mobile and PC, it's that idea that usually when an indie game makes the jump after being beloved somewhere else like that and comes to consoles, there's usually more fanfare, I feel, for it. Not all the time. I am painting with a broad brush, but this is one of the ones, since it was on PlayStation VR 2 and people were kind of about that, they were super if they even knew about this. And again, it's my most emotional experience this year in a game.
Yeah. Blessing, have you played this game yet?
Yeah, I played it around when we were playing PSVR 2 stuff. I think it was right after Greg talked about it on the show. I was like, okay, I'm gonna play this thing. I played through it, and for me, it's a shout out to narrative games that are under 2 hours long that are emotionally effective. Because I think for me this year was Before Your Eyes VR and then Venba were the two where I'm like, all right, let me play this thing. And then 2 hours later, I'm in my feels and I'm like, oh, goddamn, like that got me. That really worked. And I love playing a few of those every single year. And Before Your Eyes for sure is one that I'm like, I think is a must play if you have PSVR 2. It's the sucky thing of like, you got to have PSVR 2 though, right? Like you can't play this on just base PlayStation 5. Correct. Yeah, because you got to control it with your eyes.
I also just really want to quickly shout out, just to echo it. Yeah, Before Your Eyes is such a fantastic game. Please go play it. It's on Netflix as well. So if you have, I know you have a phone that has cameras on it. Probably there's maybe one person listening that doesn't. And if you are, you can't tweet at me because you don't have a phone. So we will have no way of knowing that you existed. Go play it. It is genuinely I think it might quite literally be a masterpiece of a video game in my opinion. I think the fact that it's, again, scores on everything. A 77, y'all are that is criminal. It is so fantastic. I really think if more people played it, it would be more in that conversation of when we talk about the best indie games of all time. Like Before Your Eyes would be in there with like that Dragon Cancer and the other heavy narrative hitters. Like it is so freaking good. So yeah, please play it. I think even if you're not part of the church of Before Your Eyes, the way like me and Greg I think are, or in Blessing to a degree, like you'll at least like it. Like I can't imagine you playing it and being like,
Blessing's in church because his partner brought him. He's like, I don't find this
I
offensive.
like the games. You guys are just more vocal about the games.
It's
We're in
fair
the
to say
choir.
you probably don't. You don't like it as much as me and Greg. Is that
No, I liked it a
accurate?
lot.
Okay, my bad.
Listen,
I don't
we
know.
can fight.
I'm ready to
Revisionist
like
history.
lay down my life for this game, so I just didn't want to like throw you in
Listen,
there
Rory,
too
is this gonna be
heavily
Life is
either.
Strange Erasure again? I love these
No,
games.
I didn't want. That's the thing, and I didn't want to do that. But I'm like, I also don't want to be like, I'm at like this is like maybe a 10 out of 10 for me, and I don't know if it's more of like an 8 out of 10 for you.
Oh,
You know what I
see.
mean?
Yeah,
Still
sure.
a high score, but I didn't want to like put
Yeah.
words in your mouth. But then I got fucked either way, so it didn't matter. What did the audience think for most underrated PlayStation game?
The audience, looking at my poll, has risen to the defense of one CJ Splitzon, who was in the live chat, is in the live chat, and it said a while ago, I'm already worried that humanity will go overlooked. Worry not! With 6.4% of the vote, Humanity is the
hell
number
yeah.
one most overlooked and underrated PlayStation Game of the Year 2023, according to the audience. You loved Humanity, right, Puzzle Poppy?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Humanity. Humanity was actually my second pick under Tren, and so
Nice.
yeah, I didn't even realize that was the audience pick, and so this works out very nicely because yeah, that was a game that came out for PSVR 2 as well, right, as well as base PS5. Correct me if I'm wrong if this is an exclusive for PS5 or if it's on PC. Let me know. But yeah, like thought it was really cool. Had a really dope art style, art direction to it. Right, it's another one of those enhanced games that like they make Tetris Effect, they make like Res Infinite, those kind of experiences, and it's always the cool auditory. Like
Humanity is on Steam.
it's on Steam as
It
well.
is on
Cool.
Steam, yeah.
But I think it's PlayStation console exclusive. But yeah, like
it had the PlayStation VR version too, or built in,
yeah. But yeah, really cool art style, really cool idea, right? Like it's essentially Lemmings, yeah, it's essentially Lemmings, right? Where you're commanding like these groups of people to go into different directions and like
It's a lot like The Last Guy. All right, PlayStation 3.
I don't even know what that is.
I love
The Last Guy.
No, okay, Blessing, you need to go play The Last Guy. It'll take you like 10 minutes to get like a feel for what it is, but
Is it anything on
Yeah,
Mario versus Donkey Kong?
It's
and
better.
I played it remember when we did that review of PlayStation, what did they call it before? Their collection thing. It was like
The Instant Game
PlayStation-
Collection. Oh no, the PlayStation Plus library.
No, I
you
don't
talking
know.
about
Is that
PS
thing me and
Plus?
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You
PlayStation Now,
played it back
PlayStation
in the
Now.
day.
Yes, PlayStation Now. Yes. Oh my God, who could
Got it.
forget? Yeah, I played that, and then I looked into it, and then I saw Greg's review, which was so funny because I was like looking for content on the game, and it was like Greg being like, "Hey, I played this game," and it was just so funny. But anyway, I don't want to. Humanity is cool. Like
It's really cool.
The Goldies, like getting the sort of, it's such a satisfying like thing to chase in terms of level achievement because it's ridiculous and weird. I feel like Humanity is if the game Kids made sense. Which no shade to kids, it was fun, but you're kind of just clicking on things and seeing what happens, and that was sort of the joy of that game. Humanity has a lot more.
It's more
direction and
designed.
groundedness to it. I really enjoyed it a lot.
In second place, completing everyone here in what they probably think and feel, Sea of Stars for Barrett Courtney with 4.5% of the vote. Barrett, do you agree Sea of Stars, the most underrated PlayStation game of 2023?
PlayStation, that gets a little weird. Like I like Humanity as like the kind of winner for the community there because it is console exclusive.
Yeah.
Where Sea of Stars, like I played that on my Switch.
Yeah,
I think
but it's there.
overall, not just talking PlayStation, maybe underrated, but
Okay.
or maybe underappreciated by certain
Yeah.
games media people.
Because
Because it is rated
names.
pretty
The
high.
same Games
Both
Media?
that and Humanity are 86.
Yes.
Actually, they have the exact same rating.
And the people who play it fucking love it.
The same,
I just want
same
more
games,
people.
the same games media that voted it best independent game at the Game Awards. You know what I mean? We played it.
It's fair.
The royal we though, not
Yeah,
not
I don't
me.
know if
I did 5 hours.
I don't know
did
if
6
certain
hours.
people here, played it.
I'll go back to it one day.
Yeah.
And then off your audience vote, there's a 3-way tie for third. It includes Dredge, Remnant 2, And then Octopath Traveler 2, which is a game I did really, really love, but I also played on my Switch this year.
I've been hearing a lot about Remnant 2 being like the game.
Andy loved it. Andy loved it. Why I call him Andy? I don't know, but I did. Andy. We're moving on to our second category. Best PlayStation trophy list. And here's where you have to wonder. Is Spider-Man just going to start running away with awards? Usually there's a lot of things going on.
Spider-Man in here.
Listen, Spider-Man 2 should be able to run away with awards at some award show, and I'm glad. I'm glad
when you eliminate every other platform, it gets a little easier.
That is true. But even then, I'm like, let me pick something else.
That was the joke, right? So like, me and Blessing both picked Spider-Man 2. Janet said on her pick, which I won't ruin right now, says blank so that we don't all write Spider-Man. And I put it on mine, parentheses, lol Janet. But I do want to give Spider-Man all the necessary flowers of, I know it's been interesting watching, our reactions as the media, the PlayStation audience reaction as PS I Love You fans and hardcore kind of funny fans. And then like I still get served the TikToks of like the incredible blood feud from the Game Awards of Baldur's Gate 3 versus Spider-Man 2. And when people want to hate on Spider-Man 2, or even when it had launched and people were just making funny TikToks about it, it was the idea that you could platinum it in a weekend. People were so upset about that. Whereas for me, I'm like, God, what a perfect experience. Where it's like, it left me wanting more. I didn't hate any of the trophies. I mean, there were Spider-Man Miles Morales trophies I remember having to sit there and farm and like, that's never fun. That's not what I want to do. Whereas this was just a joy to play, to go through, to find stuff, to figure out what you're doing and have a great time with. Yeah.
And I like the trophies that are, hey, go do your web wings from one side of the city to the other side of the city. Like those are my favorite kind of trophies where it's, hey, have fun in like a very unique way.
I'll be fascinated when New Game Plus arrives, and I assume other updates they probably do over time if they add in more stuff like that. Of just like, all right, cool. Here's some DLC trophies, and they are get from here to there, do this kind of thing. Like play around with the powers, because everybody, it's a tired old trope when we talk about both Spider-Man 2018 and now this, but like the amount of people who just keep it on their PlayStation so that they can pop on and swing around for a little bit, just to have that feeling again and go through and have fun with it. Janet, you wanted to be different. What do you got?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to be different. The accusations are true. Cocoon is the one I put on here. Which, admittedly, I think the only ding against the Cocoon trophy list is it's not like, it doesn't invite intrigue into switching how you play. But some things I really like about it is it's very easy to get. It's because essentially there's like one main collectible, if you want to call it that, in the game where you like kind of approach these things and it's like, you got it. And if you use a guide for where they are, it's like ridiculously fast because the game lets you actually zero in on each percentage of the game. The game within the UI, like when you press start for the menu, it shows like 0 to 100 every facet of the game. So you can really zero in on like a specific area. So going back becomes very simple. The only thing that I think they could have done better without changing, sort of the core structure of the game is I would have loved for some type of explicit chaptering or percentage reveal so that if I wanted to pursue it without a guide, I could. That's the only thing I didn't like about it. I felt like the effort to pursue it without a guide would be just sort of guesswork because I don't think they communicated a lot about, hey, well, how much, where would this thing be at? What would I be looking for? Sort of situation. So I wish there was something that kind of zeroed in on that a little bit more for you. But yeah, it was quick, it was snappy, and Cocoon's a game that I really enjoyed playing, so I felt like it was fun pursuing that platinum as well. But yeah, with the Spider-Man one, obviously that was the first that came to mind because, like y'all said, it's simple, it's an incredible game, and minus a few pain points, I really loved like some of what you got for doing all of them. Whether it was like a suit for like a side quest or like that little cutscene from the Spider Bots, I thought was very, very cool.
Awesome,
and
amazing.
I think that's one of the best things that a platinum can do because Spider-Man 2 is one of the few games kind of ever where I was telling people, hey, even if you don't even care about the platinum, finish this thing specifically so that you can like see what you get out of it, And it's like, I don't often get to say that about pursuing a completionist angle for any component of any game.
And it's back to the point, right, that we talked so much about in the review and the spoiler cast with Brian, but the idea that yeah, sure, okay, there's less stuff to do than some games, giant 50-hour, 60-hour campaigns. But it was the idea that everything mattered. Everything felt like it was fleshed out. Everything, you know what I mean? Like I enjoyed doing everything, and lots of these things you thought were just a side quest ended with like a really cool beat.
Yeah.
Of course, the audience agreed with us as they always do. They never disagree with us. That's kind of funny. A whopping 64% of the vote is Spider-Man 2 with various spellings. Both Marvel Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, no hyphen, Spider-Man 2 with a hyphen. There's a whole bunch. There's just goofy ass ones in here that I had to tabulate, which I didn't appreciate. But 64% of the vote there. Your next closest one would be Alan Wake 2 with 4.3% of the vote.
Jesus,
That's 64 to Spider-Man, 4.3, and then we just get into the tiniest of numbers.
Does anyone have a sense of like how hard that trophy list is or not? Because
Alan
that's
Wake
one
2?
that I'm kind of
Alan Wake 2 isn't hard.
It seems like it'd be.
Yeah, I thought about doing it when they dropped New Game Plus. I was like, okay, here we go. Or what do they call it? Final Draft. When they dropped Final Draft, I was like, maybe I'll jump in there and do it right now. That could be fun. And then it was it's collectibles, so it's got to be that thing of, cool, I got the Power Picks guide open next to me, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's
they don't
always
give you like a magic emerald that
Yeah.
more games need to be like, hey man, slap on a little detector on my shoulder blade.
The thing you need is over there, right? Yeah. So it's like
It does seem simple enough, though, that like I remember also being in the same wavelength as you, Greg, of like, let me just look at the trophies, see what I have left, and not doing a completionist like playthrough or whatever. I was mostly I had most of the trophies already, and then like looking at the completion rate of like how many people have a platinum, I was like, oh damn, I feel like that's higher than usual. So
yeah, over here, Marvin the Martian, I see what you did there. Marv the Martian, I see what you did there. Says Alan Wake 2 is a collectathon with missable ones, and that was what originally broke me on it. Where I was like, I don't feel like doing another playthrough. Then they dropped in, I was like, oh, maybe I would, and then I was like, that would ruin the experience of the New Game Plus for me. Of sitting there being like, I'm not even paying attention to the story. I'm just looking at all the collectibles. I only got I think it's 4 hours left in the Callisto Protocol, and I'm like, because all I need are these collectibles, and I'm like, do I really want to go sit there? Is that what I want to do tonight? Sit down there with the thing?
I keep thinking about Cameron Kennedy saying that he has like 130 hours in Spider-Man 2 just because
I swing so much. Yeah.
That's wild. Because like you definitely at 100% of that game in like hour 25.
Yeah.
And so you spent like 100 hours just swinging around having fun. That's awesome.
Cameron, go on TikTok Live and build yourself a career there, because people love and I love watching those on TikTok. People have there's this whole trend of these really aesthetic swing throughs with music playing, and they'll go in slow motion, and a lot of, I feel like more than most games, people really, how people say oh, I just love walking around in that world. In Spider-Man 2, a lot of people have that feeling. 100%. And a lot of, not to make Lupio with normies Cameron Kennedy, but a lot of regular gamers love that, and I think that's very rare to have something that it's so compelling that people just do nothing.
Yeah, that's my. I think that's my. If I was to throw a complaint at the content of the side stuff, and this doesn't have much to do with the trophy list, right? But I wish there was some maybe a couple activities that were repeatable in a way that kept you coming back. Because I felt like once I 100%ed the game, I was like, well, there's nothing left to do here, right? There's not even a new game plus, and so either I swing it around and do random crimes, or I put this game down and
do crimes.
Or solve crimes. Whatever Spider-Man does. Maybe do crimes. I'd be jaywalking in that game. But I wish there was some kind of repeatable activity that I can come back to aside from just doing the crimes.
It'd be cool if they leaned into that and did some type of mode that was an explicit nod to the way people just kind of swing around that game, additional challenges or something that they.
I've been thinking for a long time. A lot of PlayStation studios should add roguelites. You know what I mean? What if they did that?
Oh my God, a Spider-Man roguelite? Do you know the crimes I would commit to get that?
Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to commit a crime to get the best Kinda Funny content. You can head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, where of course you can watch us record PS I Love You XOXO for free. You can watch us record the other podcasts. You can get all the podcasts ad-free, either live as we record them, on demand as a video, on demand as an MP3. And of course, you can get more than 400 bonus episodes of content like the Daily Greg Wave vlogs, all on patreon.com/kindafunny. But guess what, Jack? You're not on patreon.com/kindafunny. So here's a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. This time of year can be a lot. Having to figure out, am I getting a gift for this person? Am I not? Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do just that with therapy. You can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace, and it can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. BetterHelp.com/kindafunny.
We now turn our eyes to best PlayStation Plus essential game. Janet, where'd you land?
I landed on Death's Door from,
Oh.
I think that was from August 2023. I also landed on the fact that I think y'all should make a doc that just has all of these, because I was Googling every
Google.
single month.
There's
To
like
see
what?
what-
I think like
ended up
PlayStation
on a
lifestyle. Right?
I ended up on a Reddit post that had it all.
Oh man, see, I was like
I was on
just
Game
in the
Rant.
PlayStation blog, just raw, just like reading through it.
Dang.
You're in the library
for
doing the
months on
work.
Yeah, but Death's Door, it's so fucking good. Like, this is a really incredible video game. It was one of my favorites from the year it released, and it still remains really beloved for me. It's interesting, like, a lot of people have that comparison point to, like, this and Tunic. I still think the combat from this is just, like, so freaking good. And the exploration is quite fun as well, and there's a lot of just, like, style and heart and intrigue to it. And in general, I really wanted to just shout out August 2023 because it also had Dreams as well, which I also considered putting on there momentarily. And then,
Nice.
funnily enough, because I was looking through this list with my boyfriend Isaiah, like looking through all like the months, and he's like, whoa, don't discount PGA 2K23, because this year he got weirdly into PGA 2K23. He logged like a dozen plus hours with his friends, like they were looking for something to play together.
It was the year of the golf game.
We played a lot of golf here, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, and I think that's also speaks to the fun that is PlayStation Plus, where like PlayStation, that was like a classic PS Plus moment for them to have, and I think that is the coolest part of the service. Of like, sometimes it's cool getting things you want, but sometimes it's cooler getting things that you don't know you want. I haven't quite had that moment this year with PS Plus, but I do love Death's Door, so I wanted to shout it out.
Did you redeem anything this year?
Oh man, that's a great question. I know I redeemed some stuff, but I didn't redeem much. And honestly, like, I'm going back to being over redeeming, because what do I need these for?
I'm not gonna
most of the things.
I'm not gonna lie. This year, I don't recall redeeming much either. Like, I think I redeemed maybe a few games, and I definitely I remember judging you a couple years ago about this. And like now that I'm here, I'm like,
She was right all
I was like, she might have been
along.
right. Like, I'm not playing any of these PS Plus games anymore. But I'm also like,
that's a trajectory a lot of my haters go through, Bless. So I'm glad you finally made it.
Of realizing you're right.
They're like, oh my god, was she fucking right?
But it's also because like I work for KindaFunny, right? And so like a lot of I'm already busy
Yes.
playing new games, and we're also getting codes for stuff. And so like I don't really have time to go back and play Death's Door for a second time. Or
It's
just,
worth
like,
putting out. Chia was on there, right? So like, even we reviewed that at launch or played it at launch, but that I would count that. As,
I want to give a shout out to Portland Kevin, who says, is Blessing going to pick an extra tier game for this again? I want to remind you that last year, the category was just called Best PS Plus Game. This year, it's Best PS Plus Essential Game.
Essential game.
I don't know if that was on
That
purpose.
extra and not essential?
Wait, say that again, sorry?
Oh, was it?
Wasn't
I don't
she
even know.
Extra and not essential.
See, I was
going
going to say, if you're going to call out Blessing on that, you got to call it all yourself, because Sea of Stars is on the audience picks, and it's like, no.
Yeah. So like I did pick an Essential game. I picked Dreams. Mainly for the fact that like, one, you got Trend when you got Dreams. So then also in Dreams, you have thousands of games that you can play. Now, some of them are Dreams good, but then some of them are good. When like, and Lock is a masterpiece. And so you got a masterpiece in there as well. So if you have Dreams, boot it up, play Lock.
I think too, like with your Dreams pick, Bless, like one of the reasons I wanted to like give it a nod, which I'm glad that it was like your pick, so I'm like, okay, cool, we have it covered, is even though it is too little too late, I'm like, finally, Dreams free for people, because that's the thing. Like that's like what we talked about for years and years. Like, why is this never offered as part of PS Plus Essential? And it really like definitely came in too late. But I'm like, you know what? At least now more people can play it, because I do think that barrier to entry of like, what is this? Is it just a collection of things I never wanted? I don't know. Like, okay, look, you have it if you have PS Plus, and hopefully it made more people give it a go, because I do think the campaign in that game is also very enjoyable.
Yeah. Artstream was fucking great.
Yeah. For my best PlayStation Plus essential game, I tossed on Callisto Protocol with no shame, and for the fact of what it is. Of course, we at KindaFunny were higher on Callisto than a lot of people, but I think it is a great free game where it's like, you look at the reviews and they're like either, they're middling, they're a little high, but it's not getting 10s or anything like that. And so you go, oh, I can skip this one. I think there's something fun to play there, right? In terms of how good it looks, in terms of them trying this melee combat stuff, in terms of being spooky and scared, and it came out in October. And so I think like when I think of like, I look at the list of games, obviously Death Door is an amazing game, don't get me wrong, but it is this idea of like, oh, well, this is a cool, timely game you might have skipped because you weren't there, and you want to jump in there and see if this IP that hopefully they come back to eventually one day does something for you.
I think too, on that note, for Callisto, even though I also did not like it, I played like an hour and I'm like, nah, I'm good. But I did play that hour, and I think I did actually probably play that through PS Plus. I'm not gonna say that's for sure a fact, but one thing that is cool in conversation with what Bless pointed out, where it's like, oh, we get a lot of codes for work. There are times where it's a game that maybe I'm not as passionate about, but I do want to try because it's a new game. And I purposefully, if I have like PS Plus or Game Pass, I'll just like not put in for a code for it, like with whatever, because I'm not covering a pre-release. I'm like, well, I can just get it on here. So I feel like it still has some of those benefits potentially. I think just especially depending on like, size of outlet or whatever. But then for like a regular player, like I think in a way I'd rather have a new who knows how good it is game than like an older known quantity. I think the perfect combo of something like PS Plus is that it's offering you a bit of both. Like, give me the hits, but also give me what's hot occasionally. And it really adds, I think, value to the service to have a big release. Because Callisto, even though it didn't pan out, that was like a big release. Like, everyone was paying attention to it. Like, a lot of people covered it. Like, that was one of the games of that month. Granted, it was also early in the year, but like,
it was last
people
year,
were paying attention.
right? It was November last year, yeah.
Yeah, because they tried to get out before Dead Space.
Yeah.
That was a wild one, because like, that was a game, because you mentioned how we had KindaFunny liked it. And it's so funny because we didn't talk about, this wasn't one that we had a conversation about as we were reviewing. Like, we didn't really know each other's thoughts until we reviewed it, and all of us were like, yeah, like, this game's great. And like, I remember
we had 4 out of 5, right? And I was like, oh yeah, you did great. I mean, I'm sure it'll be like 7s or low 8s when I was talking to Glenn about it or whatever. And I'm like, congratulations. And then reviews dropped. You're like, oh, this is one of those where we were not on the pulse.
Like, I liked it. I like that. I'd like to think that and also we have a good like finger on a pulse of like, yeah, no, this game's gonna probably review well, or this game's probably not gonna review that well based on like what we're playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Callisto, we were all just collectively way off, right?
Yeah.
And like, obviously, like, that's our opinion.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were like 4s out of 10s, but like not way. It was like people were giving it like 6s. I'm like, oh shit. Really?
Well, for me, I think it was like even after we recorded our review, I remember I was DMing DMing a reviewer from like another outlet, and they're like, hey, like, did you play Callisto? What'd you think? And I was like, oh yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was awesome. And he's like, wait, really? Like,
no, we're having a side conversation over here on a Discord, and hey, 69 is what Callisto is.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know, man. Like, I get it, but
is
I'm
it
also
underrated
like, wow.
to y'all? And I'm kind of curious. Like, are you looking back like?
I guess by
I
definition,
kind of see it, or like, is it like?
By definition, I would say for me, I would say a little underrated, but I also see it. Like, all the criticisms people say, I'm not like, no, I don't. Like, I definitely see everything people are saying. I think I just didn't mind that stuff as much.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think a 69 is underrating it, but like, I would go into the low 70s. I think that's so. It's like I'm really like I'm talking about fractions of points here. That like so it's a weird thing to say. I think it's back to similar what we were talking about with similar but different to Before Your Eyes, where I think or not Before. Was it? No, Oxenfree.
Oxenfree.
Where it's like one of those things that because it was a contentious review of like people are all over the place on it, then people were just walked away being like, oh, well, it must not be that great. And I don't think that's an accurate representation of the game. I think that for a bunch of people, the game is going to be a great time and you're going to really enjoy yourself as a horror fan, Dead Space fan, whatever. But then I'm not trying to discredit the people who didn't like it that are also those people. It's a weird one where I think that's why I think it's a great PlayStation Plus game, because it is. Try it out.
Try it out yourself.
We liked it legitimately.
It's like
so
the difference when
whatever.
I'm like, I'm talking to somebody about the game and I'm like, yeah, and like the combat system is like Punch Out, and they're like, the combat system is like Punch Out, right? Like same thing, different tones of like people were like, oh, that's good. No, that's not good.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the category called Best Studio. Janet, go ahead and speak for me.
It's Insomniac because they, made Marvel Spider-Man 2. This is like one of those classic issues where sometimes with awards, it's like, well, this one kind of reveals the next one. I think at the end of the day, it was... Well, it's weird to say it was a quieter year for PlayStation because I feel like there was a lot of noise, but the noise wasn't necessarily like great in a way. So yeah, I mean, I think they're the obvious pick. I did flirt with the idea of maybe going like, oh, like Sony Santa Monica, drop that DLC, and that stuff's great. But I think at the end of the day, like Marvel Spider-Man is Marvel Spider-Man. Like not only is it an incredible game, but it is like the thing that you're playing exclusively on PlayStation. Like it's almost impossible like for me not to conceptualize giving it to them. But then at the same time, Bless, I'm interested with what you put down because I do think there's a conversation to be had there for Best Studio.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's a little bit of how you interpret it, right? Because when I was filling out the doc, I turned to Greg and I'm like, when we say Best Studio, are we saying PlayStation Studio or like are we expanding that out? And
my thought is interpret the questions however you want to, right? So it's the best studio that was on PlayStation.
Yeah, and so my answer is Capcom. And that is because we got Resident Evil 4 remake, but then also we got Street Fighter 6, and both those I would say are some of the biggest games of the year, alongside of something like Spider-Man, right?
Of course.
But when I go through my list of my favorite games this year, I mean, Street Fighter 6 is high up, right? Like Street Fighter 6 was such a smash hit for me, and then coupling that with a Resident Evil 4 remake, which is such a smash hit for so many people, and it's a game that I really enjoyed when I played through. I think that double hit this year puts Capcom in a place where it's like, man, these guys don't miss, right? And like they've been on this trajectory for a while of putting out games that have been great, right, for the last however many years as we've gotten into modern Capcom between Monster Hunter World, the modern Resident Evils, and the list goes on. But yeah, I think this year having that double hit of Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, for me puts them on another echelon. I know it's a tough thing because like also, they're a publisher at the same time, and so like I don't know. It's unfair to compare them to Insomniac.
That's a great
Insomniac
point,
is one
actually. I didn't
studio,
think about that for one.
And like, Capcom is a studio that also operates as a publisher. So unfair comparisons, but just for the sake of being different, I'm going to say Capcom.
It's a good pick. I like it. Yeah, for me, with again, clear your mind, answer the question on the studio. I say Insomniac, obviously for Spider-Man, of course, but then also as we look to the future, like, and you talk about what you're excited for on PlayStation 5 and out of the first party and all the exclusives, right? Like, really just Wolverine, right? Like Helldivers, of course, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for, which is technically a studio's game, even though they don't own Arrowhead, but it's like Wolverine's the one we're all that is coming and you're looking forward to, and they've announced, and where is it, and blah blah blah. Like that's what I for me, that's why it gets dropped in there. Whereas Capcom had a great
year. You're not
year.
looking forward to Monster Hunter Wilds. I get it.
I really am. The final one of the listener one was your exclusive that you're excited for, and I almost went to. I'm like, oh shit, no, well that doesn't make sense. But I can't wait for that Monster Hunter. Don't worry about that. Of course, the audience, once again, agreed with us because they always do. 71.9% of the vote goes to Insomniac in the various spellings of Insomniac, which there aren't that many ways to spell Insomniac. Well, you guys figured it out to make it harder on me, which I appreciated. Behind it, of course, was Sony Santa Monica with 6.9% of the vote. And then Guerrilla Games was in there as well with 1.2%. Remedy was happening as well, so I appreciate that.
Also, I think Barrett pointed out that we forgot to mention the audience pick for PlayStation Plus Essential Game, which was Death's Door.
I thought I did. I apologize. No, yeah, Death's Door, it was the clear and away winner there, and then it's like into granular ass percentage points. So yeah, that's what's going on over there.
I only dropped it in chat because I forgot if we had mentioned it or not.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for making sure we were honest on that. This is a question I wanted to bring in while we're talking about Insomniac being a studio. Obviously, they've had a hell of a week with a giant leak of information about Wolverine, about dates, about a million other things. Boogie writes in and says, with the Insomniac leaks, do you think it'll have an impact on game developers joining PlayStation studios? As it is not the first big security breach to happen, then puts in parentheses, PSN and Naughty Dog. I think it's a simple question of no, not at all, because this is, hopefully PlayStation will fucking figure out a better security method and pass all that information on, but who else do we want to look at? Rockstar, Suicide Squad, Rockstar.
Rocksteady?
Thank you so much. Yeah. No, I'm saying Rockstar for GTA leaking.
I see.
Rocksteady for Suicide
all
Squad.
Rocks, really.
Capcom for things, I
also think that it's I don't think it's a PlayStation issue that Insomniac got hacked, right? I think it's more so Insomniac and the kind of games they work on, right? Like the fact that this is a studio that is has so many eyes on them because they make Spider-Man, they're making an exciting Wolverine game, and they have they have the kind of slate that people are like, oh,
I want to know.
I want to know, and that seems like valuable information for us to get, for us to extort them.
Who you think? I gotta know. What other studio are you putting out where people are like, I don't give a shit.
See, I wasn't even thinking about that.
It's just a funny question, and it's not a quality question. I would thought like,
I like the idea that the hackers are going through the list and they're like,
yo, we can hack EA and find out about a Madden.
See, I was gonna be like, oh, yeah, okay, well, let's look at PlayStation. What they got? Media Molecule. I don't know. Insomniac. Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, and I also think Insomniac, in the way they operate, right? Like they only got acquired a few years ago. I don't know if that I don't think PlayStation acquires them and goes, we're going to make
our cybersecurity systems.
We're going to make our security systems your security systems. I assume that Insomniac probably has like that part of their operations probably independently. And so I think it's if PlayStation has any effect on like them being the ones that are hacked, I think it's more so maybe just the eyes that are on Insomniac as opposed to anything else. And to that, right? Like I think Insomniac also probably wants a parent company like PlayStation to go, all right, we just got hacked. What do we do?
Like sue all these people and figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, like give us your resources, PlayStation.
Blessing,
Greg.
Let's move on to the best PlayStation exclusive. Our final category of us before we get to the audience categories. What did you pick?
I picked Final Fantasy 16.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I didn't want this to be a fucking monolithic.
But would you say Spider-Man 2 if you weren't worried about being different?
No, I'd still say Final Fantasy 16. Yeah, I still say Final Fantasy 16.
So you're one of the Final Fantasy 16 people.
Yeah, I'm one of the Final Fantasy 16 sickos, as they call us. And honestly, it's actually kind of close, probably. Yeah, like it's not far and above. Like I think on any given day, you ask me on a different day, I might put Spider-Man 2 above Final Fantasy 16. The reason
Hypocrite.
Listen, all right. I'm sorry that my mind changes, but I think the reason why I at first blush right here, right now, I'm going with Final Fantasy 16 is because how affecting that story was for me as I played through it. Right, like what the characters go through as Clive, as Sid, as the rest of the cast. The performances in that game are so fucking good, right? Like I really love Ben Starr as Clive. I really love the actor that plays Sid. Ralph Ineson. I think the back and forth between the characters and the relationships feels so grand because it's Final Fantasy and it's dealing with magic and it's dealing with nations and royalty and all these things that are big ideas, right? But the way that they ground them in like specific characters and the way that they have this flow that almost feels like I'm getting seasons of an anime. Like I did a lot of comparison to this game to Dragon Ball Z, and that's mainly for just like the way in which they level up each encounter with like the new villain of the week or whatever, or the new villain of the saga that we're in. And the way it starts off with, okay, here's this guy. Now here's the guy that's more powerful. Now here's the guy that's even more powerful. And like you're working your way through.
Can you believe
them.
the power of this man?
Yeah, and like there are such hype moments in this game that like gave me goosebumps, right? Let alone the soundtrack, let alone the visuals, let alone everything. Like I think Final Fantasy 16, for like even the complaints you can throw at it, right? Like I think it oversees that stuff. Like I think it really does rise to the occasion, and like I just fucking love this game on another level. So for me, I would say it's the best PS5 exclusive this year.
You were not alone. For the audience vote, Final Fantasy 16 got number 2. And I'm just going to start rounding with about what? 24% of the vote.
Oh, okay. That's higher than I thought, actually.
Yeah. Compared to the 58.3% of the vote that went to Spider-Man 2, which was, of course, Janet and I's pick.
Yeah.
What needs to be said at this point? You know what I mean? Spider-Man 2.
It's
what a
fun
game.
time.
What a great time.
It's good.
Yeah.
The game is good. Turns out this game is good.
Even Metacritic agreed.
Yeah. Like it's I don't know. It's so funny like with Marvel Spider-Man 2 because I know the classic thing lobbied against it is like, I don't know. It's like more of what we know. And it's like a little like it's so polished that it like lacks the dynamics of deeper intrigue. And that is true. But like it's also a good ass video game.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like it's not it's not, an exciting deep cut pick. It doesn't have a lot of things to even debate positively or negatively about it, but it was a really enjoyable time. And frankly, I've mentioned it on the show before, but I was personally really impressed with the ways that, at least for me, I felt like the combat did get improved in that it was sort of smoothed out a bit with like kind of mapping everything just to like face buttons and like off to the side. And yes, it is a lot of me just looking at cooldowns, but you know what? Whatever. I don't, you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. Like I still had fun doing that. I like being really OP in games. I like that this leans into it. I love the ways they sort of kind of forced you to wait on getting certain abilities despite being able to like level up really aggressively. Like I think they did a really cool push and pull with things. I like how they rolled out the side content with the main content. I just had a good time playing Spider-Man.
Me too.
So sue me, it's like, but yeah, that was my favorite PlayStation exclusive.
Again, it speaks to like what I
year.
want out of PlayStation exclusives in their studios, right? I want great gameplay and a great story and a great time, and I feel like that game was that. And it could have, I see people going through, right? Anthony Corbett in the live chat. My only nitpick with Spider-Man 2 was it was a little short and rushed story-wise. Yeah, the rush bits, eye of the beholder kind of thing, but like short, yeah, like still, I appreciated being done and feeling like I got everything out of it and wanting more. And again, as we've talked about, I know Games Daily on the day of recording today, Thursday, was about like our AAA games sustainable, right? Like I think shorter experiences would go a long way for that, and see if we can get on the way. My biggest, and I wouldn't have even thought about it till we were here doing the show, enjoying each other's company, watching that trailer. The saddest thing about Spider-Man 2 is that here we are on the other side of it. It's done, platinum to put away, and I still can't stand the new Peter Parker. Look
at this dude's face. Bring up his face so I can roast it.
The fucking Hope Man was like, of course, when I'm playing remastered or when I'm playing Miles Morales and the new Peter pops up, I'm like, oh, right, they changed it. Right, that's weird. And it was like, well, I'll play 20 hours of Spider-Man 2, and on the other side, I'll be like, that's Peter. And I look at him, I'm like, you're not fucking Peter.
Yeah.
You never will be.
I have a quick question about the whole is this game too short conversation or whatever. Am I forgetting, like, when the first game came out, did people also have that conversation? Like Marvel Spider-Man 1?
No.
I think that's ridiculous because they are literally the same length on how long to beat.
If you want to...
The only difference is main plus sides for Spider-Man 2, and I know it's like, self-reported, like the data's, not like the most scientific approach in the universe. Main and sides for 2 is 22 and a half versus main and sides for 1 is 25 and a half. And like I guess the completionist is also longer for Spider-Man, so maybe that's kind of the gap. But even then, it's like only a few hours of a gap. The main story is
because they cleaned up the side stuff to have it be more fun.
That's
like
my whole
go
thing.
back to Spider-Man 1 and try to get that platinum again. That shit is not fun.
And that's 100% the point I would have made, Barrett. Right, where it's like I think it's rose tinted glasses. Where by the end of some of that Spider-Man, like the fucking. Those last few Sable bases I was fighting, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I need to platinum this game.
Yeah.
So I feel like by the end of it, I was like, I need a break.
I do think there's something there, because I still go back to what I was talking about earlier.
Bander S said Spider-Man 2 would be longer with worse load times.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
But I do think there's something to what I said earlier about, like, I finished Spider-Man 2, and there's nothing to do. Like, I could do the Mysterio missions, and that's about it, right? Whereas, like, I feel like for Spider-Man 1, there's still, like, stealth challenges I can go back and do. And, like, again, a lot of it is repeated content, right?
Sure.
Like once you 3-star shit, you 3-star shit. But I think Spider-Man 2 could have used some of that in his post-game content, because there really is like not shit you can do in that post-game, and I think that gives people the perception of, oh, that's it, and like you have nothing left. Maybe even a New Game Plus could have gone a long way into making people feel like they had more to do. But I think most of it is honestly like just feeling, as opposed to like the what is actually laid in there. I think the amount of content, I think is pretty much the exact same as like a Spider-Man 1.
To end the show, I want to move on to a speed round of the topics / award categories you wrote in for, ladies and gentlemen. Big Daddy Empower wrote in and said, biggest miss of the year. And for me, I wrote down PlayStation's live service push. Of course, you can say, well, none of them came out. What are you talking about? Just fucking the announcement of 12 plus coming out. Last of Us steps on the rake. Eventually is canceled by the end of the year. Jim Ryan retires. They walk it back 6. Like, it was such a... hey, we have all these live service games, and then the audience being like, we don't want them. Like, we don't want this shit. Well, here's a PlayStation showcase that features many of them. We don't want these. What is this? No, oh, fuck. And like what the ripples of that will be next year in 2025, 2026, how many of them actually come out, how if any of the green lighting of 12 of them that have been scaled back to 6, that will probably be scaled back from there. If that slowed down the production on the PlayStation games you'd actually want remains to be seen. But the fact that I feel like PlayStation had all this goodwill for what they were doing and were keeping single player games alive, and these are the AAA experiences, yada, yada, yada. And then just like, we're going to do this now. And everybody's like, what the fuck are you doing? Huge miss.
Yeah,
Wes?
I think on that note,
No,
sorry,
please.
I'd like to go in just because it's really related to what you're talking about, Greg. That PlayStation showcase.
Yes. That's your biggest miss, yeah?
Yeah, like, okay. Like, that thing was a 2-pack of ass, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm so sorry to the people who showed their games, but, like, that thing sucked. And never was let this be a lesson to everyone listening. Never put your work over existing, because during that time, like, I had a vacation set up. And I'm not going to lie to you, like, because, again, I love, covering this content, and that's a big deal. And especially for our show, I was like, damn, man, I'm missing the PlayStation Showcase. Well, I'm going to live my life. I already set this up. I'm not going to put my vacation on hold to like cover the PlayStation Showcase. I still did watch it though, because Isaiah also likes PlayStation, but I didn't like, do all my stuff for it. And when I was sitting in my hotel in Palm Springs, never was I so thankful that I was like, this is why you don't put shit on hold for work, because look at what I would have sacrificed for and for what. I'm like, I was so vindicated in that moment with how bad it was. But again, I was really surprised. I think the thing about it is, we spend so much time talking about, what PlayStation can do, what's next, what their roadmap could be. It's clear they have like a really powerful team of studios and ideas. And I just feel like we didn't see much of that. And that's really why it was that big letdown. Because it's like, if this is your big moment and this is what you have, that's kind of rough. And hey, not everything's going to be great all the time, but it was certainly one of the weaker ones that I think we've experienced in recent history.
Bless, what was yours?
The PSVR 2 launch lineup.
Sure.
I think we're still in a place where I'm not excited about the games that are on PSVR 2. I'm not that motivated to plug in my PSVR 2 to try out what's on the platform. And that was the thing that I was like, I remember back in the day, back in February, when we like reviewed PlayStation VR 2 so long ago, and like we got a lot of pushback from people in comments, whatever. And like, a lot of it made me go, maybe I'm wrong about this lineup. Maybe it'll shape up. Maybe the people are saying something that I'm not seeing. And still a year later, I'm still in a place where I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not excited at all about the games. Horizon Call of the Mountain, like, I gave a 3 out of 5 in that review. I thought it was whatever. I think Gran Turismo is pretty cool. Before
this is pretty cool.
Yeah, Before Your Eyes was dope playing VR, but like, I don't think the things that I'm talking about here are like system sellers or things to get hyped about or things to be like, yo, y'all need to get a PSVR 2. Like, there's not really the PSVR 2 doesn't have that still as of now. And so for me, that's a disappointment. I think a year into the platform, we should start to be like, oh, I could see why I would get this thing, but it's really hard for me to tell people to go out and get it.
From there, we move on to Brandon, who wrote in to KindaFunny.com/PSILY and said, best hardware. Janet.
I don't have a shit for this category, if I'm being honest. I wrote faceplates, and then said PS Slim, I guess. I don't have any of it. I will be taking Greg's DualSense Edge, so I'll report back on that. But other than that, I haven't dipped into what the hardware offerings were, besides PSVR 2, which, as Bless said, didn't end up being. And I like that that's the only
thing you really have, and you're like, I ain't putting that shit here.
Because it's like, what, am I gonna lie to you? Like, I guess it's best because like the hardware is great. I'll take the faceplates over PSVR 2. I know it's gonna sound rude as hell. That's my truth. I would use them. And
Speak your truth. Speak your truth, Janet.
Yeah, my answer. I'm actually split between two things, but I'm going to commit to the DualSense Edge.
You use it all the time, right?
Yeah, this is my main controller. I fucking love this thing. I'm so excited
to have that Edge.
It's so nice. I love using it. I also want to give a big shout out though to the PlayStation Pulse Explorers. Oh man,
you do use those all the time too. Those are you on your. I see you.
Yeah, literally, like I'm just in the office wearing the PlayStation Pulse Explorers. Yeah, and I mean, it's so useful again to the fact that I fixed my issue where I couldn't get them to connect to the PS5. Turns out there's a button on the USB stick that you gotta press that does not look like a button.
Maybe you didn't throw away the instruction manual.
I threw away the instruction manual so quick.
How hard can this be?
Yeah, I was like, I'll figure this out. But man, I've gotten to a place now where I can play my video games, but also be connected to my phone via Bluetooth at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. This has changed everything about the way I interact with my PlayStation. I fucking love it. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to music while I'm playing Rocket Racing, while playing Fortnite, Lego. Like I'm doing all this stuff at the same time. And it's fucking fantastic. It's
seamless. You using Spotify?
Yeah, I'm using Spotify on my phone.
Because you can do that on your PlayStation 5.
Yeah, but like it's also like an extra button press or whatever. So now
also,
it's like...
Also, too, the app is a little inconsistent.
It is.
Like,
also true.
Times,
yeah, I know. I've crashed a bunch of...
The levels will get all funky. Yeah. Like I think,
Bless, and I have like local music too on my phone as well.
And you can make a phone call with it, or somebody calls you, which is nice.
I can listen to Pocket Cast podcasts now.
Oh my god, Pocket Cats, I love them. Yeah. For me, of course, I put PlayStation Portal, shocking no one.
Pocket Cats.
Yeah, you said Pocket Cast, but I said Pocket Cast is a joke. PlayStation Portal. Again, as somebody who remote played nearly every night, I now remote play every night. It seems, and again, like. Jen is so happy as a light sleeper that I can now come to bed and lay next to her and play PlayStation rather than go downstairs, thunder upstairs at midnight, knock something over or whatever. I can just be next to her cursing as I try to beat whatever I'm trying to beat in Diablo. But PlayStation Portal, it'll be interesting as we talked about with the PlayStation wrap-up last episode, if next year when it's like your favorite controller, and they showed the DualSenses, and I'll be interested if Portal's on there, and if so, if that wins out. But we will wait and see for what 2024 brings. I like the odd ones here. We're going to do Chris to wrap No. Let's wrap up with Chelsea. Chris, you were very close. I apologize to you. But Chelsea's wrap up is best 2023 game you can't wait to play in 2024. And then Chelsea says, for me, it's Alan Wake 2 and Resident Evil 4. I did not have the time to squeeze them in before the year ended, but they are high on my 2024 Game of the Year watch. I love this question because what actually have legs from this year or that we missed or that whatever, right? And so for me, I put Diablo 4. I expect fully to still be obsessed with it come January. I think it'll probably be the game that'll be listed next year as the first thing I played. And then, of course, Vessel of Hatred, the expansion is supposed to drop next year. And I have high expectations for that.
Vessel of Hatred.
Yeah. They announced it at BlizzCon that's the...
They got real cool names for this Diablo
They do.
stuff.
You got to come back. Come play. Did you
I
ever
don't
play?
think I will. I played for like maybe 2 hours and I was
Alright,
like, this isn't for me.
Fair enough.
Okay, now that just leave it alone. Then,
What are you
at that
excited for?
point.
Street Fighter 6. I'm gonna play way more of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I don't think there's any other game from this year that I'm gonna revisit in the future years. I think what's done is done. I'm sorry, Sea of Stars and Barrett. But yeah, I don't have time to like play games that are not modern.
No, I feel
they're
you.
Not
new.
modern.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Don't go to the
No,
fucking
it's
Andy
true.
thing. Don't do the Andy thing where it's like all turn bases and fucking
No,
modern.
when I say modern,
you play
I meant
turn-based
new.
games.
I meant like new. Like I like
The
there are
current
games,
hotness.
The current hotness.
What you need to be part of the current
You know?
conversation.
People want me to be playing Persona 3 Reload, including you, Barrett. People want me to be playing Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, including me. Like I want to be playing the new games.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Sea of Stars. I ain't got the time. But I do have time for Street Fighter 6 because I always have time for Street Fighter 6 and stuff.
Janet, what do you have time for in the new year from the last year?
I probably don't have time for shit as well. But and there's the obvious ones that I know I'm gonna play. Like I'm gonna continue my Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough, but I want to pick something more interesting. So I was kind of looking at like what would I love to be able to get back to chaotically, and I think it's Jedi Survivor. I feel like that game was really fun. I only played a few hours of it. I liked it. I get the I kind of see why people aren't like this is so the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I think it's so. There's something I find so cozy about the design. I think because aspects of it feel very old school PlayStation, yet I think they have a lot of like modernizations to them to make them still feel
Sure.
good in the modern era. And I really liked that about it. I don't know, it feels like such a cozy experience. I love the sort of different settings and styles that you can lean into where sure it's doing the Soulsy thing, but it's not like it's impossible and you can kind of, fuss around to make it easier for yourself if you want to. And I really like that. I played a bit of Fallen Order and I wasn't into it. And playing Survivor, even just those first few hours, I'm like, okay, they clearly took a lot of notes from the first one and made proper adjustments. And I really like that. So I would love to see that through. I feel like it'll be a fun thing to randomly play at a random point in the year and have people be like, this is unrelated to what's going on, and I'm like, fuck it. I'm just playing
When you're
Jedi
getting ready
Survivor.
for Star Wars Outlaws, right? When that'll be on the tip of everyone's tongue. You could do it then.
Sure. I don't want to ruin it though by making it. You know what I mean? I want to just like let it be natural. Like I'd love to naturally just wander
What a
in
game.
on a rainy
Star Wars
afternoon.
Outlaws is coming out next
What
year.
a
That's cool.
Survivor, but yeah, hopefully that's great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope so too. But man, Survivor, what a game! There was a category that we didn't do, but it was like the best shitballs
Best
moment.
Star Wars game? Oh.
No, and I put the Cal and Marin run. So if you know what that means, great. If you don't,
Yeah.
no big deal. But it was amazing.
Was that with all like the portals and teleportation shit?
Just said, I'm not gonna talk about it.
Oh, sorry. Spoilers.
No, it's not. I think that's not it. That's not a spoiler.
No? Okay.
Portals.
Well, since we're not doing the
Portals.
other categories, can we do like one final PlayStation game shout out and just use it for whatever we want?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Because I want to shout out Chance of Sonar. That was my
Nice.
potential underrated game, but it's at an 85, so it's like that's not really.
You're like,
underrated.
it's got enough ratings. It's fine.
You know what I mean? It's kind of rated. Like maybe I would rate it a little higher, but not by something ridiculous. I'll keep it short because we're running long. But it's just such a fantastic puzzle game. It is my favorite puzzle experience of this year by far. I think it's so special, so different, so incredibly interesting. Go play it. It is a puzzle language game. I'll kind of leave it at that because again, running long. But I think they make a lot of smart design choices to facilitate you engaging with this gameplay that is essentially guessing what a
Sure.
glyph might mean and then confirming it. It's wonderful. Sometimes I'm walking back and forth for too long. That's my only gripe with it. But other than that, it is freaking great and I can't wait to finish it.
I want to shout out my favorite PS5 2023 game, Stellar Blade. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd shout out Venba then. I wanted to talk about it at some point in this series, or this episode, but it never really came around to the right thing. But
Yeah.
I adore Venba, another short, super fun indie game. Put you in somebody else's shoes, experience a different culture. I loved it. Blessing didn't listen to me when I said it, but somebody else said it and he listened to them, so whatever.
They were right.
Classic. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, This has been PS I Love You XOXO, your final PS I Love You XOXO of 2023. And you didn't even know it. It was Janet Garcia's final episode as a regular weekly contributor to PS I Love You XOXO. That's right. Back in the fall of 2021, Janet stepped up when I said, hey, I got to go take care of this wife that's about to have a kid. Then I went on paternity leave. I came back, and Janet hung in there with us for the next 2 years. But now it's time to say goodbye from a weekly capacity, Janet.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough, Janet, for all the work you've done for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fantastic. I don't know. There's like a lot to say. Obviously, the show means like a lot to me, and like getting to hang out with y'all has been such a pleasure, and we went through so many eras together. It was really fun seeing, Bless step up as lead host during that paternity leave time. But yeah, I mean, I put a lot of thought into my decision to step down as like permanent third chair. I would, of course, we'll be coming back to like hang out. I'm going to be there for our Game of the Year stuff. So
January 10th, we're flying Janet up to be here in studio to hang out with us for the live Gamescast where we go through Game of the Year. So again, This isn't a goodbye. It's just like, oh, okay, not every week.
Yeah, essentially, I just wanted to sort of create space in my schedule. I feel like it was a good next step for my career, just to kind of open things up. I feel like historically, as I've gone through things, in my experience, like you don't know how much is out there until you sort of put yourself out there. So This is me kind of doing that, in 2024, of course, focusing in more on the stuff I'm already doing, right? So I'm writing on Pen and Pixels, I'm streaming, I'm doing, other podcasts. I'm working on the consulting thing with mock reviews and all of that. But yeah, obviously, if y'all love my podcast content, I do a lot of other podcasts. I'm on MinMax, I'm on Indie Council. I've guested a bit on Remap, but yeah, I'm really going to miss you guys over here on PS I Love You. PlayStation has been such a big pillar in my career and all its iterations. It feels really, really weird entering 2024 without like a PlayStation specific vertical. And obviously, like I can do what I want and like do whatever kind of coverage I want, right? But like it's weird not to have that. And like, I don't know, it still very much is going to live with me. Like I plan on just like playing all my shit on PlayStation, hanging out and keeping up with things and like, continuing to be a fan of the show as you guys continue to, hold down the fort. But yeah, thanks for everything. I don't want to be too like, I don't know. I feel like I go for a long time and I don't want it to be too long winded, but yeah, like I like love the hell out of this show and I'm going to like miss working with you guys every week. But yeah, thank you for having me during this time. It's been a fun era.
We love you, Janet. You know that. We love you so much. Thank you for everything you've given us. And of course, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching PS I Love You XOXO throughout 2023. Of course, we will be back in 2024. If you're unfamiliar with KindaFunny's usual schedules, it's pretty simple. January 5th is our anniversary. It will be 9 years for KindaFunny on January 5th, 2024. So we will be back in the office that first week of January, but you won't see any new content out of us until our big old stream starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Friday, January 5th, 2024, where we stream a whole bunch on YouTube.com/KindaFunnyGames, Twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames, talk to you about the year ahead and have a great time. Then, of course, PS I Love You will be back the next week with episode 200.
Goddamn.
That will be episode 200 when we return the week of the 8th. And most importantly, though, on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024, we will be doing and deciding and finding out what KindaFunny's Game of the Year 2023 is. We will be bringing up Janet. We'll be bringing up Paris. We will have everyone here on one set, and we will find out, as Barrett has been working feverishly on the Game of the Year package graphics with Andy, everything else. We submit our top 10 to him. He tabulates all the votes, and we find out live along with you what the KindaFunny top 10 is, including our Game of the Year. Barrett, how's it going so far?
Maybe some of you could send in your votes. That'd be cool.
I'm still playing games.
Hey man, if you wanted the vote, I'm gonna give it to you when it's due. If you wanted it earlier, you should have told me earlier.
I mean, who knows? I might boot up Sea of Stars during the break.
Don't fucking lie to me. If you're going to
Don't
come
let-
up
don't
with
let
an
it get to you.
excuse, good,
This is what
do
he
good
wants.
with it.
Y'all can
this on January 10th, everybody.
Y'all can gaslight and girl boss, but I can't.
All right. PS I Love You XOXO is your PlayStation conversation. You can get it each and every week on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, podcast services around the globe. No matter where you get it, thank you for supporting it. Like, subscribe, share, leave reviews, tell your friends, etc., etc. And of course, head over to patreon.com/KindaFunny. On patreon.com/KindaFunny, you can get the show ad-free. You can watch us record the show live. You can watch us record the other podcast live. You can get the other podcast shows ad-free. You can get exclusive content like the daily Greg Wave vlogs. You can get cool merch like right now in December, the KindaFunny Christmas card. no matter where you get the show, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, happy holidays. And until 2024, it's been our pleasure to serve you.